Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's having the courage to continue that counts. That's a very famous quote, and I think it sums up relapse quite well. I get contacted about relapse probably more than anything else. People that are feeling deep sense of remorse and shame and guilt, feeling like they've let themselves down and let other people that love them down, and regret, all of these things are going through their heads. But failure is part of life. It's part of learning. You have to fail to succeed. And it's a bit of a paradox, that, but it's very, very true. If I've learned anything over all the years I've tried to recover from addiction, it's that those relapses, and they're well documented on this channel, so please have a look, subscribe and like the video. It just helps one or two more people see them and perhaps give them some help. I've learned that from each one of those relapses, I've taken a step forward, if you like, and got stronger from them. I didn't see it like that at the time. At the time they happened, I felt all those feelings I've just described. The shame and the guilt, was overwhelming, and I just felt, oh God, I've let everybody down here. I mean, the last time I had 5 years sobriety. But if I look back on it, those 5 years, probably 2 of them, I was clinging on because all my behaviours had slipped backwards into addictive behaviour, those behaviours that were taking me down the route of addiction. Because I wasn't focusing in on my thinking. My thinking had gone bad again, and I didn't have any support in place. I'd isolated. I'd slipped down the route and wasn't checking my behaviour, wasn't checking my thought patterns. I wasn't working on my sobriety. And if there's one thing I've learned about addiction, is you have to put the work in, and you have to be willing to put the work in. And it's a daily task. You get a daily reprieve. I don't care what anybody says. If you're a true alcoholic or addict, if you take that drink and drug and can't stop, you're powerless, and it leads you into chaos every single time. You literally can't stop when you start. It ignites a massive obsession and the cravings, negative behaviours leading to negative outcomes, but you literally can't stop and get off that circle. And you are an alcoholic or an addict. And you have to constantly work, and you have to work one day at a time. See, all these sayings that are around the addiction recovery are there for a reason. Because whether you are in a support group such as AA, NA, CA, or in your Smart Recovery, Al-Anon groups online, doesn't matter what you're in, because if it works for you, it's fantastic, whatever it is. But you'll see all those sayings wherever you go in recovery, and they're there for a reason, because they do work. However you choose to go about it, it's a daily reprieve from, and all you have to focus on is not putting that drink or drug into you for one day at a time, one moment at a time sometimes, because that's how hard it is sometimes, So at the end of every day now, because things I wasn't doing, I do little mini inventory at the end of the day, looking at my behaviours. Inevitably, every single day I could do better, but I'm checking those behaviours as they happen. It's progress, not perfection. Again, another one of those sayings, which is fact. I spent most of my time in regret about the past, or living in the past, if you like, in pain and regret, and living in the future in my imagination, in worry and fear. None of that is productive for a recovering alcoholic or addict. You just need to avoid it, and you need to work however you go about it, whether that's meditation, prayer, whatever it is. You have to be working in the moments and checking those thought patterns constantly, and your behaviours constantly, and your thinking constantly, your motives around things. And if you do that one day at a time and one moment at a time, you will stay sober. It's simple. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Of course, it isn't simple. The solution is simple, but going about it and staying about it is the hard part, obviously. But you will get there. It's about consistency. It's about discipline. It's about putting the work in every single day, every minute of the day sometimes. Being willing and open-minded. It's all about those things. But as far as relapse goes, was it a necessary part of my recovery journey? Because in my recovery journeys, there's been lots of relapses and they are documented on here. Please have a look. And I've learnt from every single one. I felt all those feelings I described at the beginning of, failure, if you like, shame, guilt. But around that, I also learned that was necessary for me to move forward. I'd stopped progressing, and hungry, angry, lonely, tired is there for a reason as well, because normally all those things are involved when you go downhill. The problem with relapse is that the thing about addiction is it lies in wait, getting stronger, waiting for you, and it's always 100 times worse, or when you go back to it. And the last relapse I had nearly killed me, which is why I sought, I became willing to seek proper help. And around that now, I work daily on I've never been better, calmer, more. It says you will know serenity and you will know peace of mind, and that's a fact. But putting that work in and living in the moments is all a necessary part of that. Learning from those previous relapses was all a necessary part of that and of the movement forward. Now, some people, and I've met them, have never relapsed. They've stayed and worked on their sobriety constantly, and I take my hat off to them. And they're strong because they've constantly worked a day at a time at their sobriety. I've met people also who've been sober for 30 years, recently and relapsed for 8 months because they've become slightly complacent and thought they've convinced themselves that they could drink or take a drug like normal people, in inverted commas. Of course, if you're an addict or an alcoholic, a true one, that's not the case, and it will ignite an obsession and a craving, and that you can't control, and you won't stop until it's oblivion and carnage and your life is in chaos again, or you're dead. And that's the sad fact, and that's what you've got to think about. So relapses, it can happen at any stage if you become complacent. But the fact is, if you're lucky enough to get through that relapse unscathed, if you like, in one piece, then it becomes a necessary part of your learning and part of your sobriety, if you like, in your toolbox, because that behaviour that's taken you down that route, and you don't want to go down that route again, definitely not. You only get a daily reprieve from addiction. It's as simple as that. It lies in wait for you. You can never relax, which is why you need to put the work in on a daily basis. But please, if you've relapsed recently, or you think you're going to relapse, even whatever it is, be kind to yourself, because sometimes it is, like I say, a necessary part. I know it was an important part in a sense, and that sounds silly, doesn't it? But it was an important part of me moving forward and getting stronger, and consistency and discipline are key. They're two things which I've found are, because around everything else I do, that consistency and discipline fits into my exercise, my dietary regime, and everything it takes to keep my mental health on an even keel. But don't beat yourself up about relapse. Learn from it, as you do from every failure in life, because failure is a necessary part of the success. It's as simple as that. You have to change your mentality towards it. You'll never succeed if you don't fail first. Generally, that's the rule. So I hope that's been useful for you. Stay strong. Keep moving forward. Carpe Diem. Seize the day today. Much love to you all. Bye-bye.